So if you haven't used Painterly Florals yet, it's amazing. If you haven't used a furniture transfer yet, they are so absolutely easy to use. And everybody thinks I hand painted the sunflower. So this is one of the 8-sheet transfers, and they're coming now, I'm sure you guys know, in these pads, which makes it so nice to ship and so nice to use. So I want to keep it moving so you guys get to see everything, and I'm pretty excited. So when I had to pick my sunflower, and this is where I started, and I know that it sounds silly, like I should paint my canvas first, but I needed to know what size board I wanted, and then what color scheme as well. And the sunflowers, the colors on them are relatively the same, but they differ in the amount of orange that they have in them. So I selected the one that was right here, but you can see there were lots of choices. Some are bigger and some are smaller. So the board that I'm going to prep for you guys today is smaller, and I think it would look good to have that on there. The background is all painted with a chalk style paint. And you guys, you can use any chalk style mineral based paint. Acrylic paints can be a little bit funny. They don't water down as well in my opinion. And this was just really easy to use. So what I kind of did was I took a blank 3/4 inch interior plywood. The 3/4 inch is nice because you don't have to put a frame on it. You paint that and it looks stunning. This is something Sally and Josie introduced us to in their gallery wall series. So one of these sides is sanded, and actually this is a really nice board because both sides seem to feel like they're sanded, so it's not going to matter. I think that's the sanded one. And I just layered paint on top of paint on top of paint, and Michigan is in the house, and dripped, and then I finger paint a little bit. So this is my finished product, and this is where we're heading. Because I was worried about time, I've got one that is ready for the sunflower. I'm going to show you how to get to this step, but this way we won't have as much downtime. Suzanne, thank you. So I have to be honest with you. This is my third board, and this is my favorite finish so far. And I know what the key of it is, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So we're going to start with this smaller board, and I'm going to show you how I got my canvas prep. You don't have to use wood, you guys. You could use, I got to make sure that I have enough room for me here. You could use canvas, you know, whatever works for you. The gallery, the wood planks by IOD, those would be perfect, and they come in a variety of sizes, so those would work really well for this. I sell so many of them that I didn't want to take one out of inventory and not have it available. So I'm not gonna focus on comments too much because I want us to be able to finish. So my base color is going to be this turquoisey blue. You could use navy blue. I just wanted a darker sky. So whatever color scheme works for you. So I'm just going to get that just on the top part of the board. And this is a tight fit for my, I'm going to get this a little bit wet so it flows a little better for my tripod here. So all I'm doing is getting just some dark on this background, and I would normally be going with the grain of the board, but I went and got some board cut last night, and this was the way they cut the smaller boards, and I was appreciative that they cut them. I don't know if you guys have ever had wood cut at like your Home Depot or your Lowe's, but you're at the mercy of whoever is working back there, and they're not always super thrilled to be cutting the wood. So I'm doing my edges, right? So that step's done. And I'm not making rocket science out of getting the edges done. But that's enough for my dark background. And I just want to somewhat clean my hands. If you could see the mess on my hands here. So, and it's because my paint is getting low in that container. So that's going to give me that dark background for the top of my board. So let me just get this dry. And here's the reason I'm drying this. I'm doing the bottom half white. Remember, this is a mineral-based paint. If I were to put the white on while the blue's still wet, the colors are going to blend. For furniture, I for sure want that. For this painting, I want my layers to be total layers. So I'm going to be doing a lot of drying. That's also why I did prep that board ahead of time, you guys, so that we would be ready for the transfer. Especially in a workshop setting, I've learned that really having those layers dry makes the application of the transfers so much easier. So people will say that, you know, my transfer didn't stick, and it's like, your transfer stuck great. It just stuck to your paint, and your paint wasn't fully dry, so your paint didn't stick to your board. So that's good enough right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip it over to work on the other side. And I'm going to grab another paintbrush. I do not want any mixing of my colors. And again, if you just joined, I am not really going to focus too much on comments because I want to make sure. I will go back in and answer each and every one. But I want to make sure that we have enough time to fully develop this concept here. So I know that I want it lighter in the middle and darker more around the top. So I'm just pulling my white paint through. And that's going to be pretty good. And I'm just going to set this aside. And now I'm going to dry this real quickly again. And I hate that noise. My heat gun yesterday shorted out, and I had one explode before. So I don't want to. Actually, I've got another one I'll plug in here real quickly. And so this, if you look at the boards, you'll see, let me flip this over, that right there is the look that we're going for. There we go. So I just flip it over. It makes it easier. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to layer some of the background paint. So if you look here, I have some like bright olive green and I've got some red. So I'm just going to add some of that in to the background. Otherwise, the rest of it, for the most part, I'm going to be dripping. The one thing that I'm sure of is I will not be able to replicate any of the boards that I've done. It just doesn't happen. Mara, good morning. So it just doesn't happen. You can't ever, and I've never been able to totally reproduce anything. So I'm just going to use an artist brush, like an inch. What kind of paint are you using? Mine is a clay-based paint. Any mineral-based, clay-based paint, chalk paint, any of it would do. So I'm just trying to, dry brush some interest of colors in different areas before I start dripping. Got a little white on there, that's okay too. But most of the rest of it is going to be done with drips. So pick colors that work with your color scheme. I have found that any shade of blue that I tend to pick up works with this. And when I think I'm finished with this, like I'll add more after I get the sunflower on if I think that things are lacking or missing. So now I do want to add a little bit of, it's a darker red. And I'm going to add some of that up in here. And again, all of this is going to get layered. And then I definitely finger paint at the end. So that's going to get dried. Set the other side. And while that's drying, I'll see if you guys have any comments. I so appreciate you being here. Hey, Suzanne. I asked the ladies who follow me on my page if they would support me this morning, and they showed up in huge numbers. Thank you. God, I love you guys. I love the hearts. This is such a fun project. When you're starting to drip, this doesn't have to be like super dry. So when I drip, you can see I've got, other than this huge pile of green paint that I'm going to end up wearing here, I've got my drip bottles ready to go here. And they're all the colors that I know that I'm going to use. So now this is the fun part. I start dripping. So what I'm going to start with, if you look at this board, it's just layers upon layers upon layers. And the lighter colors go last. But I do know that I want it more of the lighter tones in the middle. And then I will adjust with my sunflower. So if you look here, I knew my sunflower was going like there. So that's how I decided what I was going to do. So I would have my sunflower out and making those decisions. But now what I'm going to start doing is I'm just going to layer some of that green that I was using. And I'm going to bring that to the outside. These bottles, you guys, you can get them anywhere. You can get them at Amazon. I got these actually at my Dollar Tree. You can get them at Hobby Lobby. So you want a watercolor look. So what I do is I drip and then I spray it. If you want more paint to stick, let it sit for a minute before you spray it. And you'll see in a second that I vary my directions too. So I like that where it's starting to drip, you know, a little bit off to the side. And then I've got my base color blue right here that I'm going to bring in. I got to watch time to make sure that. So there's the base color blue. So just layering, layers, layers, layers. I'm going to bring some blue back over here. And this blue is a little thicker than the others, and I think you can see that. If you put a towel down under your easel, it cuts down on mess. Which way does my camera need to go? I'm going to go more that way. Okay. Is the paint in the squeeze bottle? It's about 50-50, Lourdes. So it's definitely waterier than it is paint. So it's not very thick. It's not meant to be very thick. So now that was like the darker colors. Now I'm going to go in with a little bit of the red. And my red is a little thicker because I put too much paint in my bottle. So my bottles are from all different places, but don't spend a lot on these. That they don't need to be expensive. And I would look at which sunflower I was using to determine. Actually, I'm going to spray here first before this one. So it just kind of drips in the water. There is a lot of burnt orange in the sunflowers. So I'm going to dry this. If I continued dripping now, it would spread out like that, which is awesome for a watercolor look, but I want some of my colors to be more vibrant. This dries really, really quick because it's mostly watered down. So the other way, spray your board first. It's going to water it down with more heavily watered down paints in your bottles. So I'm going to add some of that burnt orange color. Then there's a couple of other things I want to show you before we switch. And if I want it thicker, you know, I won't spray, but this line right here is kind of thick, so I'm going to go at it from the side and move it over. That adds a little bit more interest too. So we're starting to get some of those colors going in there. Now I'm going to go back in with some blue and green because it's looking pretty light to me. And then I've got a brighter blue. Mineral-based chalk paint. Yes, this is actually a clay-based paint. So this is a mid-tone blue, and I like what that adds to it. And it's still looking like a hot mess, right? And I mean, it just does come together. Now what I want to do, before I start going toward the yellow tones, is I want to add some interest to the top there. You'll see that I end up finger painting. So I'm going to flip my board over. Well, right now I'm going to flip it. Oh, that's still not dry enough for me. Let's get a little bit more dry. I don't want this to continue dripping when I flip it over. So those last two bright blues I didn't water down. You can see how much more concentrated they are. Okay. So now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to add, I want it to drip from the center toward the top, so to speak. So here's a, I want to say a bumblebee yellow, but that's probably not accurate. And then I'm going to rotate my board so it starts dripping across. So now it's starting to go in that direction. And I'm going to do the same thing with that burnt orange. And then you'll start really getting some interest. Flip it back over and let it drip down. Something else, I don't know if you noticed where I stuck my finger right there. That's really cool because I took off, you know, I took off some of that top paint. But look what that's doing over there. how cool that is, where all that's starting to come together. I still look like I got a hot mess going on because of that middle. So I'm going to dry this. Ouch, burnt my hand with my hot gun. Wow, that hurt. And I'm going to now start bringing in the yellow. And the yellow that I like is a mellow yellow. That, the orange, and the red is where I pretty much end up. I want to touch that again. It's going to mix with the colors that are on there. That's a good thing. Then, you know, you can kind of hold up your sunflower. This isn't the one that I'm using on here, but for your board to see what else you need. So it definitely needs some of that brick red color. I'm spreading that out. And I'm going to bring in some of the orange. Here's that blue base color. Oh, I think I have it closed up. Yep. So that's my blue base color. And you just keep going with it. So I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to switch to the board. It's wet, so I have to be careful. Board that I have done. So you seal your chalk style paint before applying the transfer. And make sure that your layers are dry. Really, really important steps. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is, I knew I wanted to add a couple of leaves too, so I'm going to cut those. This sunflower that I picked has a hint of a stem. I'll build on that after it's applied. So I'm going to remove the sunflower. That one's wet. Okay. So now, that's the only way that I can see how I want to position it. And I don't want it, you know, I don't want it straight up and down. That's just not me. So I think I'm going to put it like right there. Looks good to me. So normally I would work flat, but I'm just going to kind of get this attached. I like to work on my transfer from the top down. The other thing I found is use your stick. Don't just use the corner. Thank you for the hearts. Don't just use the corner. Use that full, you know, that full edge. That way you're not digging into your paint. So I'll grab the edge, and then once I see it's grabbing, it's getting that first little edge down. I'm not worried about any paint issues because this has been drying since last night. So really, I can't stress enough how important I think sealing it is. And I use a water-based sealer. And it's just knowing what works for you. So trying to press against an easel is just not the most efficient way to do this. But I don't want to switch my camera angle. So I just want to make sure I get all those edges down. Much easier to do this on the flat table. But you'll see, once you get it on there, what colors you want to bring out. Maybe I got it, right the first time, but I can always drip more. If I can get this off, then I can just use a soft cloth to burnish that right on there. Okay, I'm just going to take a paper towel. You could use any soft cloth. And I'm going to burnish that on there. Normally, if I was working like I should be on my tabletop, it would have gone a little bit more quickly. But I posted this on my page, and I posted it on Instagram, and people just think that it's hand painted, and that's because Sally and Josie do such a wonderful job of giving us such fabulous products with zero ghosting. And that's really what makes it look like it was painted on there. So I'm looking in my camera, and I really could not be happier with that. So I'll show you how I go in and finger paint, but I'm not sure I even would this time. So right here is the stem. Oh, thank you so much for the hearts. So I want to show you this. So right here is the stem. I'm going to drip extending from that stem. And I'm not going to water it down. So that's how I accentuate the stem. Oh my God. Oh, where'd the sunflowers come from? That's so cool. Hearts that turn into sunflowers. Wow. So, but I would step back and I would see what I like. So what I need to do is I have to get my paint back here. So what I'm going to do, and I've got some water. This will do. I've got some water here. So what I want to do is I want to bring in a little bit more red into some of these areas. So I'm just going to work off the paint that I have in my plate. And I'm going to use my finger because I'm going to have more control. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to bring that in there. And I've got the blue I used earlier. I am going to add those leaves. I'm just not going to add them right now. So I want to add some blue. And this is just adding, another layer of interest. And I just find I get more control of exactly where I want it with my fingers. Go over that. And that's getting like a brown shade to it. Shadow in that corner. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Shadow in that corner. Of the blue in there. I like that. I think oh my God, those sunflowers are so stinking cute you guys are posting. So that's giving me a lot of interest. I'm trying to look at my original one, and I'm going to go to my mellow yellow, and I'm going to pour some on my plate of that light yellow. So I can't get it out of my bottle. There we go. And I'm going to pull some of that in. And just by using your finger, that smudging just adds texture. Pull it down there. Switch directions. But I hope you can see how that's just adding texture. And do the same in this corner. Pull that down. So if we look at, and you know, each one's going to be a little bit different. That one, you know, I've got the sides in different colors. I'm doing the same idea here. Sorry, thank you. So I got the red there, and I like that. I like how that's, I want to show you what's going on right there. And that's by layering it and then pulling it back with the baby wipe. So I'm going to, I just don't want it to look like I stuck my finger there. So I'm just blending the outside of that. And you could totally just keep going with this. The thing I want is I want dimension around those edges. So I'm taking that blue, pulling that in. All the way down the side. It's just going to make everything pop. And a palette knife really would be just a little bit better. Thanks, you guys, so much. I appreciate all the hearts and the support. So if you haven't tried IOD, put it on your list. There are so many stockists that there has to be one near you. I will put a link to the stockist and the online stockist so that you can make it really, really easy to get your products. I do want to go over this just a little bit. It's a little too chalky for me. That's just that yellow. Just right on my finger. And I think I'm pretty happy with it. There's just some white. I've got sealer on part of that. That's where I've got the stem going, so I'm not going to mess with that. So all I'll do now is I will seal it. Yes, it's a transfer. I so appreciate you guys being here. Only my second time on IOD TV. I will be back here 4 weeks from today, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And I am so appreciative of you guys. So again, I am Lisa from Sweet and Sassy Treasures. And if you liked what you saw, I have a Facebook page. And if not, then just join me back here in 4 weeks. Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, you guys, for all the love. I appreciate it. And I will see you in 4 weeks.